before you came on, I was talking about the brother in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who literally had his brains blown out on the ground, face down, 10 days ago. And I said, I don't know what to do about that. And I tend to not talk about things on these airwaves unless I have like, okay, here's 1, 2, 3. Here's what we do. We got to vote. We got to do this. We got to boycott. I don't know what to do about this.
The challenge is we keep looking at racism as it is just some individual bad actors and not really look at the fundamental structural nature of these systems that are designed that they dehumanize certain groups of people and that they are rooted in the context of racism. That this question, I know that there were many who had an issue with this, with the phrase defund the police for a variety of reasons, right? But the one thing effectively that phrase did, it made us look at and examine police in this country, because the fact of the matter is we have not called ourselves to really examine the very structure of policing in this nation. The bottom line, unfortunately, I think we will continue to see these kinds of acts because we've so created a system that dehumanizes a group of people that our very humanity is never in question. It's never the first consideration. This was a man on the ground that was of no threat in the moment, that was being restrained, could have been restrained, but his life meant nothing. And that if we are literally in a nation that we are supporting any kind of system, any kind of force, any kind of institution, that at the very least, that is supposed to be created to serve and protect, but instead it has a framework that dehumanizes people in our community, that dehumanizes folks that may not look like them or groups of people, that we've got to literally recognize that we've got to restructure, dismantle, and shift the entire paradigm of that particular system.
So as I'm watching that happen, I'm thinking Grand Rapids, Michigan, what's the power structure there? Who is in charge? Because I think we get outraged at that thing, which we should be outraged. We should. Right. You said this is not going to be about our politics. It's going to be about our humanity, and I couldn't agree with you more. But we also need a power play. I started off the show talking about Elon Musk, who is using his inside voice outside, playing games, pulling strings, messing with the stock market, doing all these things that most of the time only happens when we can't see it, And I was like, oh, he is revealing some things. Are we paying attention? Is Twitter worth $40 billion? He knows it's probably not. Is he really trying to buy Twitter, or is he doing something else? And like, we start asking these questions, then why are we supporting these things? And how are we supporting if those dollars that we actually have built, because Black Twitter's everything on Twitter, when's some of that money being funneled into our community to do things? And what's the ask? And when are we demanding things? So like, I'm looking at all of that and saying we can do more.
We can do more. And it really does rest with, we have to have a fundamental rethinking about how do we hold the value of life and humanity. We really do. We can blame different systems and different, yes. I mean, the bottom line for everybody that says, there are bad police officers and good police officers. Absolutely. The police have done great things and they've done bad things. Absolutely. All of those things. But what we're not really dealing with is we're not dealing with the fact that racism built herself a house and all of us are living up in it. And at the end of the day, if we want to have something different, then we're going to have to create and build something different. And so part of that, what I think that the only thing that will allow us, racism is so entrenched, into the very fiber of every single aspect and institution in this nation, that the only way that we're going to really be able to transform it is that we're going to have to go to, as Stevie Wonder says, we're going to have to go to higher ground. We're going to have to go to higher ground. In order to go to higher ground, there's going to have to be a different kind of consideration. We can't take a consideration around this is the Democratic position or this is a Republican position, or I'm a conservative, so I'm going to be over here, or I'm a liberal, so I'm going to be over here. We really going to have to go back to basics around there's something that is called humanity. And every single system that we create in this nation should be in service of that. That should be secondary to your police force or the fact that you want to keep a particular kind of system. That should not be secondary to your corporation. That should not be secondary to your money. At the end of the day, the core thing, the one gifting that we have is we have our humanity, and there has to be a deeper sense and a value of that. And what I believe is all that we see that is being hurtful and harmful that is happening in this nation, that is happening around the world, comes from a lack of an understanding and appreciation of something as basic and fundamental as the precious and the sacredness of humanity. And so I am hoping that, and I'm not saying that into some altruism, that's just the truth, right? If you had a really deep sense of humanity, you wouldn't have the ability to be able to shoot a man in the back of his head, right? Who showed you no threat in that particular moment.
No. He did. He had the audacity to not comply. Because if you would just comply, I told you to get on the ground and and you didn't do exactly what I told you to do. So therefore, I'm going to stick this butt of the gun in the back of your head and pull the trigger. Not one time, Latosha, not two. I saw 3 puffs of smoke. And I said, wow, the first time rendered him lifeless. Why'd you keep going?
Because that's what hate will do. Hate will perpetuate itself. It will grow. And that's why I want us to stop. We got to stop and really recognize what this is about. This ain't about your political position. This is about there is something fundamentally wrong when we give license to any human being in a nation to be able to blow another man's brains out just because he didn't do what he said to do. There's something wrong. I don't care where you are on the spectrum. And if you are unable to see that, then there's something wrong with your humanity. You need to put your own humanity in check. And so I think that what we've got to do is we've got to really be able to shift the paradigm and stop thinking of ourselves as political animals and start seeing ourselves as humanity. And that be our starting point. Now, does that mean that we're going to all agree on the same policies? Absolutely not. Does that mean that we're going to all want to see the same solutions? Absolutely not. But I can guarantee you that if there was a baseline of a value of our humanity, the way that we would fight would be different. Right? The way that we would engage in difference would be different. There's nothing wrong with having differences. Matter of fact, I often say, I don't believe that America's problem, I say this all the time, is that we don't know how to get along. That's not what I believe the issue is, right? That I don't believe America's problem is that we unified, because when were we unified? When people say that, like, it ain't like it used to be, well, when was that? Like, what, take me back to when America was unified, right? But what America's problem is America has not developed the depth of character and the capacity to differ in ways that we can still duly hold that we have difference in political ideology and there is an alignment in the value of humanity. If we had a basic value of each other's humanity, there would be no reason for war anywhere.
No humans are allowed. No humans are found in a system that started with the 3/5 compromise. And then you're compromising literal people. You're compromising the value of a human being to a 3/5, to a fraction, right? So
how crazy that is.
Right. And that's in the Constitution, right?
So how crazy that is. Like you have the ability to determine that somebody is 3/5 of an actual human being. Now, who gave you that right? There's something even wrong with that thinking. Where did that come from?
But then they codified it.
Your own humanity to even get to that point.
Yes. And it is in a constitution that we all have to pledge allegiance to on some level, instead of saying, oh, this document is so flawed that we shouldn't go forward with it because it's no longer relevant. Let's do a new one.